The day Sean Connery passed away, the whole world mourned a monumental talent. The global press unanimously praised him as Hollywood's most elegant icon. His image as a suave spy was considered the absolute gold standard in the entertainment industry. But the truth always has its hidden corners. During his peak years, Sean's magnetism left countless people yearning for him. Many of the world's top stars were willing to cast aside all moral boundaries just to get close to him. They weren't afraid of the camera lenses. They were the ones taking the initiative, extending bold invitations. Do you think actresses always maintain a strictly professional image? The reality is entirely different. Ursula Andress bluntly approached and locked the door of a beach cabana to kick off a fling. Judo fighter Blackman used an armbar on a sweat-soaked training mat to initiate actions that went far beyond any script. Or sex symbol Brigitte Bardot, ready to ignore hundreds of paparazzi to slip into a cramped trailer in the middle of an arid desert. Today, this classified file is officially opened. We will flip through the list of 8 seductive women who walked into Sean Connery's life. These are the most naked truths, hidden away for decades. Ursula Andress, the sex appeal that defeated focus. October 2020. The villa in Lyford Cay in the Bahamas was bathed in the absolute silence of the late afternoon. Sean Connery was living out the final days of his life in his familiar linen-upholstered armchair on the porch. Declining health prevented him from walking much, so he simply sat still, running his wrinkled hands along the wooden armrests. The sea breeze ruffled a few silver hairs on his forehead as his gaze drifted toward the crystal-clear waters in the distance. This serene setting inadvertently unlocked a door to memories that had long been sealed shut. Decades of working in the entertainment industry came rushing back in vivid detail to his mind. Audiences worldwide always remembered him through the image of a suave and elegant spy. However, in these final moments of his life, he confronted his truest self. He remembered the women who had walked through his life, and especially a secret event in Jamaica that always lingered in his thoughts. His memories took him back to the spring of 1962 on the sun-drenched beach of Ocho Rios. The temperature outside was blistering, but the Dr. No film crew was still urgently setting up camera angles. It was the first James Bond film, so a 32-year-old Sean Connery was under immense pressure from the producers. He had to train constantly to maintain his physique, run on sinking sand, and perform a series of exhausting fight scenes. The exhaustion was evident on his face through the heavy beads of sweat. Just then, director Terrence Young shouted to start a new take, and Ursula Andress appeared, playing Honey Rider. She stepped out of the deep blue seawater onto the white sand in a white two-piece swimsuit, with a knife tucked at her hip. She let the seawater run down her toned body. The crowd of crew members suddenly fell silent as all eyes locked onto the actress. Sean Connery was resting next to a large palm tree at the time. He shoved his hands into his pockets and stared straight at her without blinking. The sexual magnetism radiating from Ursula was incredibly powerful, completely defeating the young actor's focus. That afternoon ended when the director called it a wrap. Technicians quickly packed up cables and cameras, and everyone scattered to rest. Sean walked toward the private rest tent reserved for the lead actors and stepped inside. The space inside was very cramped, smelling of sweat mixed with the salty tang of the sea. Ursula Andress was already standing there. She hadn't changed clothes yet and was using a large cotton towel to dry her soaking wet hair. Sean paused for a beat, then reached back and slammed the tent flap shut behind him. The atmosphere instantly grew tense, so much so that even the sound of the ocean waves outside seemed completely blocked out. Ursula dropped the towel on the table, stepped closer to Sean, and looked him straight in the eye. "You look exhausted after this morning's shoot," she spoke up. Sean didn't answer. Instead, he immediately took another step forward. The distance between them was completely erased. Sean reached out, grabbed her waist, and pulled her flush against him with absolute resolve. Ursula immediately reciprocated by wrapping her arms around his neck. They didn't need any more words or feeling each other out. The two young people threw themselves at each other, completely shedding the facade of co-workers on a movie set. That tiny canvas tent concealed an act that completely crossed the line, a place where they broke every standard convention right at the workplace. The next morning, the sun rose again over the island of Jamaica. Sean and Ursula walked out of the makeup room together, picked up their scripts, and continued shooting scenes exactly as the director instructed. No one on the crew noticed any change between them, as both had concealed the event flawlessly. The media trailing them outside remained completely in the dark about the events of that night. On the quiet porch in the Bahamas, Sean Connery blinked softly to pull himself back to the present. The image of the Jamaican beach faded, but the corners of his mouth curled up slightly. Ursula Andress's boldness that day was the beginning of a chain of secret events in his acting career. He took a deep breath, letting the salty ocean air fill his lungs. His mind refused to stop, continuing to seek out the setting of another film, where a young woman in distant Istanbul was waiting for him. Daniela Bianchi, the seduction behind the panic. The Bahamian sea breeze continued to sweep across the quiet porch. Sean Connery shifted slightly in his linen-upholstered armchair. The memory of the white sands in Jamaica slowly faded. His mind drifted along the timeline, stopping at the following year, 1963. The setting this time was the ancient city of Istanbul, Turkey. The From Russia with Love crew was working at a blistering pace. Sean continued to shoulder the role of spy James Bond. The pressure for this second installment was immense. Among the cast that year, Daniela Bianchi drew the most attention. She was a stunningly beautiful former Italian beauty queen, taking on the lead female role of Tatiana Romanova. However, behind her gorgeous on-camera appearance, Daniela was going through a real crisis. Daniela's English was very limited. She had a terribly hard time grasping the rhythm of the script. On set at the Circeci railway station, director Terrence Young constantly demanded retakes. Daniela fumbled and grew panicked. The audience and the media had no idea about the immense pressure this young woman was enduring. Sean Connery stood in the corner, observing it all. He noticed his co-star's extreme tension. Instead of walking away, he decided to step in and offer to help her run lines after hours. That evening, the Istanbul sky grew dark. Sean, clutching a stack of scripts, walked down the carpeted hallway of the Hilton Hotel. He stopped in front of Daniela's door and knocked 3 slow times. The door opened. Daniela appeared looking exhausted, but her eyes showed clear gratitude, unlike her glamorous look on set. She was now wearing just a simple set of pajamas. The hotel room was quiet, completely isolated from the noisy city outside. They sat down at a small table by the window. Sean started reading each line. He taught her how to emphasize syllables and control her breathing. Daniela listened intently. She leaned forward to clearly see the text he was pointing at. The space between them slowly narrowed. Her soft perfume filled the room. Sean abruptly stopped reading. His focus was no longer on the script. He looked up, directly into the young woman's face. "Let's slow down a bit," Sean said softly. Daniela looked up at him. Her breathing quickened. There was no resistance in her eyes. Sean reached out. He placed his large hand over Daniela's pen-holding hand. He slowly stood up. He walked to the main door and turned the lock. The dry, metallic click echoed through the silent room. When Sean turned back, Daniela had already stood up to wait. He stepped forward, wrapped his arms around her waist, and pulled her tight against his body. The script rehearsal was officially over. Both completely shed their professional barriers and sank into the fierce pull of instinct. They shared an incredibly private space, leaving all strict workplace rules outside the door. The next morning, Daniela Bianchi stepped onto the set with an entirely different aura. She spoke fluently, her expressions were natural, and she executed the scene flawlessly. The director smiled with satisfaction. In a hidden corner, Sean just stood silently and gave a slight nod. No one on the crew knew about the secret behind the closed hotel door last night. Later, audiences would only see a flawless spy movie. At his villa in the Bahamas, Sean Connery let out a long breath. His wrinkled hand tapped lightly on the armrest. Daniela's innocent seduction from those days remained an unforgettable highlight of his life. He closed his eyes tightly. The surrounding space held only the sound of murmuring waves. His memories shifted once more, taking him to a sweaty martial arts dojo, where an older, incredibly strong woman waited in the next chapter of his life. Honor Blackman, provocative physical strength. The late afternoon sea breeze blew across the porch, rustling his thin jacket. Sean Connery reached up to smooth the fabric. Images of the 1963 Istanbul streets gradually faded from his mind. The flow of time pushed him forward. 1964. The quiet villa gave way to the noise of the Pinewood Studios in London. He was at the absolute peak of his career. The Goldfinger crew was entering its most grueling workdays. The project demanded highly realistic action scenes. This time, his leading lady was actress Honor Blackman. She played the role of Pussy Galore. Unlike the beauties before her, Honor possessed an incredibly fierce exterior. She was 5 years older than Sean, most notably, in real life. She was a legitimate judo practitioner. Director Guy Hamilton demanded that the two of them personally perform the classic barn fight scene. They had to train rigorously to avoid injury and ensure the authenticity of every frame. It happened on a late weekend afternoon. The studio's physical training area had closed early. The backstage crew had all gone home. The massive room was empty save for Sean and Honor. They wore thick, white judo-gi uniforms. The room smelled of sweat and the vinyl of the tatami mats. The workout intensity was sky-high. The two continuously executed throws, chokes, and joint locks. The sound of backs slamming against the mat echoed loudly throughout the room. Sean possessed a massive physique and superior physical strength. However, Honor completely overpowered him with masterful technique. She moved with incredible agility. Sean lunged forward, grabbing the lapel of her uniform. Honor quickly stepped back a beat. She pivoted, lowered her center of gravity, and used leverage to throw him over her shoulder. Sean fell flat on his back. He slammed hard against the floor before he could even register a reaction. Honor lunged at him. She drove her knee hard into his chest and applied an armbar. Their bodies were pressed tightly together. This intense physical collision had been happening continuously for hours. Heat radiated from their bodies. Pounding heartbeats transferred through the thick fabric of their uniforms. Their faces were mere inches apart. They stared straight into each other's eyes. Heavy panting filled the air. "That lock is very tight," Sean said in a deep, gravelly voice. Honor didn't answer. She didn't loosen her grip. The competition on the mat came to an abrupt halt. The tense atmosphere of martial arts vanished. The sexual tension ignited fiercely. Honor took the initiative, leaning her body down low. Sean slipped his arm out of the lock. He wrapped his arms around her waist with one decisive motion. He reversed the situation and pinned Honor to the mat. They threw away all hesitation. They let instinct take the wheel. Two sweat-soaked bodies tangled together right there on the empty training mat. The secluded space completely concealed the wild passion of the two actors. The next morning, the studio lights flared on. Sean and Honor stepped into the barn set. They performed the wrestling scene flawlessly in front of the camera. Every grapple, lock, and throw was crisp and decisive. The entire crew burst into applause when the director yelled, "Cut!" No one suspected the secret behind that absolute chemistry. Later, audiences were captivated by the bitter rivalry between the two characters. They were completely unaware of the willing submission on the training mat the afternoon prior. In the Bahamas, Sean Connery smiled faintly. His wrinkled hand gripped the armrest tightly before slowly relaxing. The memory of Honor Blackman's fierce strength made the blood in his veins feel warm again. He gazed out at the vast ocean in front of him. The crystal-clear water reminded him of a tropical archipelago. The memory shifted once more. He remembered another quiet night, tied to the name of a stunningly beautiful former Miss France. Claudine Auger, the decisive shedding of clothes. The Bahamian waves lapped steadily against the sandy shore. Sean Connery remained seated in his linen armchair. The memory of the martial arts mat in London receded. His current surroundings mirrored another pocket of memory. It was 1965. The Thunderball crew had returned to this very archipelago in the Bahamas. The natural scenery was breathtaking, but the workload was absolutely grueling. His co-star this time was Claudine Auger. She played Domino Derval. Claudine was a former Miss France, possessing a wildly free-spirited European beauty. The script required a ton of underwater scenes. Sean and Claudine were constantly in wetsuits, submerged in the deep ocean for hours on end. They had to swim around real sharks. The salty water and pressure left their bodies aching. Moving underwater drained the energy of the entire cast and crew. Physical exhaustion was at an all-time high. It was a long day of filming. The sun dipped below the horizon, and darkness swallowed the crew's resort. The tech guys packed up their gear and drifted off to sleep. Sean Connery strode down the empty hotel corridor. He wore a short-sleeved button-down shirt, half unbuttoned. His body ached from hours spent at the bottom of the sea. He stopped in front of Claudine Auger's door. He raised his hand and knocked twice on the wooden door. It slowly opened. Claudine stood there. She was wearing a sheer silk robe. Her hair was still damp with seawater. The room was dead silent. The warm yellow light illuminated her face. She looked straight into Sean's eyes, stepping back. She left the door wide open. She didn't look surprised in the slightest. Sean walked right in. He reached back and slammed the door shut. The lock clicked decisively. The two stood face to face. Neither said a word. The physical exhaustion completely evaporated, replaced instantly by an explosive sexual magnetism. Sean stepped forward. He reached out and touched her waist. Claudine casually pulled the tie of her robe. The garment dropped to the floor. Sean pulled her tight against him. That night, they completely shed their movie star personas. They acted on the urges of youthful instinct, sharing a secluded space and crossing every boundary of professional camaraderie. Dawn broke. The roar of speedboat engines shattered the silence. Sean and Claudine appeared at the dock right on time. They were back in their black wetsuits, checking their masks and oxygen tanks. They dove into the water and resumed shooting the action scenes. Director Terrence Young shouted orders through a megaphone. The entire crew was laser-focused on the job. Not a single person uncovered what happened in that dark room the night before. The media only snapped photos of them on set. The audience only saw a suave James Bond and a seductive Domino on the silver screen. Sean Connery took a deep breath, filling his lungs with the ocean air. His hand patted the wooden back of the chair. Claudine Auger's free spirit from those days was a striking piece of the puzzle of his life. He pulled his gaze from the sea and stared into the empty space ahead. The memories of those diving days closed. His mind kept moving, taking him back to a cramped studio lot where a highly intense, face-to-face showdown with a female assassin awaited him. Luciana Paluzzi, hostility turned into physical attraction. The memories of Claudine Auger and the diving days slowly faded. His mind didn't leave 1965. Thunderball wasn't over yet. The crew had to travel from the tropical island back to England, continuing their interior shots at the bustling Pinewood Studios. His on-screen adversary this time was Luciana Paluzzi. She played Fiona Volpe, a ruthless female assassin for the shadow organization Spectre. The script demanded clear, palpable hatred between Luciana and Sean. They shared many tense, face-to-face confrontations. Luciana was a highly opinionated Italian actress who embodied the role perfectly. Her icy glare on set made many crew members nervous. It happened one afternoon in the London suburbs, inside the soundstage. The air was suffocating. Dozens of high-wattage lights blasted heat everywhere. Director Terence Young had just wrapped a complicated take the scene where Fiona Volpe threatens James Bond with a gun in a hotel room. Sean and Luciana had to rehearse and shoot this struggle over and over again. Both were exhausted and drenched in sweat under their heavy makeup. The director yelled cut and announced a 30-minute break. The technicians scattered into the hallway for a smoke. Sean Connery stepped off the mock-up set. Luciana was right behind him, having just handed her prop gun over to the prop master. The two walked down a narrow corridor leading to the dressing rooms. This area was very dark and deserted. Suddenly, Sean stopped. He spun around, facing Luciana head-on. The actress looked up at him. The hostile expression of the assassin completely vanished. The corners of her mouth curled up into a smirk. "You take being tied up quite well," Luciana whispered. Sean didn't reply. He reached out with his left hand and tightly gripped Luciana's wrist. His grip was powerful. He pulled her, walking briskly forward. The prop room was just on the right side of the hall. The door left ajar. Sean shoved the door open and pulled Luciana inside, slamming the wooden door shut behind him. The deadbolt clicked decisively. The room was crammed with cardboard boxes and racks of old clothes. The smell of dust hit them instantly. Sean let go of Luciana's wrist. He placed his hands on her shoulders and shoved her hard against the wooden wall. Luciana's back hit the wall with a dull thud. She didn't fight back. She wrapped her arms around his neck. The on-camera tension instantly morphed into an intense, physical magnetic pull. They lunged at each other amidst the scattered props, completely dropping their roles as enemies to take full advantage of this brief 30-minute break. When the assistant director's voice echoed over the PA system, the prop room door opened. Sean and Luciana stepped out, faces completely calm, their clothes perfectly straightened. They returned to the set and resumed glaring at each other with intense hatred. The camera crew was entirely oblivious to what had just transpired. Audiences watching the film only saw a breathless battle of wits and brawn between two opposing sides. In his armchair in the Bahamas, Sean Connery slowly opened his eyes. He lifted a hand and gently rubbed his temples. He felt his heart rate tick up just a bit. That fleeting liaison with Luciana Paluzzi still brought a wildly stimulating rush. He took a few deep breaths. The quiet reality of the present pulled him back. The memory of Pinewood Studios closed, and his train of thought kept moving forward. This time, the destination was an arid desert in Spain, where a French sex symbol awaited him in the next chapter. Brigitte Bardot, the sex symbol, knocking in the middle of the night. Fast forward to 1968. The scene morphed into the arid Almeria desert in southern Spain. The Chalaco film crew was camped out here for a massive Western project. His co-star this time was Brigitte Bardot, France's premier sex symbol. The pairing of these two megastars drew colossal public attention. Hundreds of reporters and paparazzi camped around the perimeter of the set, aiming their lenses at the duo 24/7. They were waiting for the slightest intimate gesture to write a headline. The press constantly applied invisible, crushing pressure. The desert weather was brutal. The sun beat down fiercely on the golden sand. The entire cast and crew had to work in scorching heat. Sean was draped in a thick, heavy leather cowboy outfit, his face and clothes caked in dust and dirt. Late in the afternoon, director Edward Dmytryk called a wrap. Everyone quickly scattered to find some shade and rest. The paparazzi also retreated to their designated boundary lines. Sean Connery walked toward his personal trailer. He opened the door and stepped up. The blast of the AC hit him instantly. He tossed his cowboy hat onto the table and poured himself a glass of water. Suddenly, 3 sharp knocks rapped at the door. Sean set his glass down. He walked over and turned the handle. Brigitte Bardot stood right outside. She wore a plaid shirt tied at her waist, her blonde hair coated in desert dust. "They're all gone," Brigitte said quickly. Sean didn't say a word. He took a step back, making room. Brigitte quickly slipped inside the trailer. Sean poked his head out, scanning the area. No one was looking their way. He yanked the door shut with force. The metal lock clicked dryly. He reached up and yanked down all the blinds on the small windows, plunging the mobile room into total secretive darkness. Sean turned around. Brigitte was standing right behind him, looking up directly into his eyes. Sean reached out and firmly grabbed both sides of her waist. His grip was strong and decisive. Brigitte immediately wrapped her arms around Sean's neck. They couldn't care less about the layers of dirt and dust on each other's clothes. The pent-up emotions from being under the scrutiny of hundreds of camera lenses all day completely evaporated. They lunged at one another, acting purely on intense physical desire. That tiny trailer in the middle of the desert became the hiding place for the wild passion of 2 of the world's biggest movie stars. Hours later, the sun fully dipped behind the dunes. The trailer door opened. Sean and Brigitte stepped out one by one, clothes perfectly adjusted. They kept a distance, professional space between them, and walked off in opposite directions. The paparazzi waiting outside failed to capture a single romantic photo. The public only read articles about their cold, strictly professional collaboration on set. Sean Connery slowly opened his eyes. The Bohemian villa had fully surrendered to the dark. He gently rubbed his palms together. Slipping one past hundreds of seasoned reporters that day still gave him a massive sense of satisfaction. He adjusted his posture in the chair. The quiet ocean night continued to pull his mind further. His memories shifted to a bustling, glamorous city, the dazzling, neon-lit casinos of Las Vegas in the next chapter. Jill St. John, unforgettable liberated spirit at the casino. Darkness totally enveloped the Bohemian villa. The memory of the dry Spanish desert vanished. The timeline pushed Sean Connery's mind to 1971. The scene in his head shifted to a loud, dazzling city, Las Vegas, USA. The Diamonds Are Forever crew was filming there. Sean Connery was returning to the role of James Bond after a hiatus, commanding a record-breaking salary. His leading lady this time was Jill St. John, playing diamond smuggler Tiffany Case. Jill had striking red hair and an incredibly liberated lifestyle. Las Vegas itself was famous for its wild, free-spirited ways, with casinos operating around the clock. The cast and crew blew off the intense pressure of filming with endless parties. It happened late one night. The crew threw a wrap party after a successful shoot at the Riviera Casino. Loud, thumping music echoed everywhere as guests mingled, drinks in hand. Sean stood leaning against the bar, looking sharp in a black tuxedo. Jill approached him, wearing a high-slit evening gown and carrying 2 glasses of red wine. "The city is way too loud," Jill said. Sean nodded. He reached out and took a glass from her. The atmosphere around them was chaotic. Sean looked directly into Jill's eyes. He set his wine glass down on the marble counter, reached out, and grabbed her wrist. His grip was resolute. Jill didn't resist at all. She just let him pull her away. They turned their backs on the crowd, walking briskly past rows of noisy slot machines and stepping into an empty elevator. Sean reached out and hit the button for the top floor. The doors slid shut. The cramped space instantly cut off the casino noise below. The elevator stopped at the penthouse level. The doors opened, and Sean pulled Jill down the thickly carpeted hallway. He used his key to open his private suite, and they stepped inside. Sean kicked the door shut behind them, the deadbolt locking with a sharp click. The room was pitch black. save for the neon lights from the street bleeding through the glass windows. Jill raised the glass of wine in her hand. Sean swiped his arm out, knocking it away. The glass shattered on the floor, spilling red liquid onto the carpet with a dull thud. Sean stepped forward, placing his hands on Jill's waist and pulling her tight against his body. Jill dropped her clutch to the floor and wrapped her arms tightly around his neck. They didn't need any explanations. They shed their exhaustion and their public star personas, surrendering to raw instinct right in the heart of the city. The next morning, the glaring Las Vegas sun beat down. Sean and Jill appeared in the hotel lobby right on schedule. They ordered coffee, prepped for the day's shoot, and chatted naturally with the crew. Not a single paparazzo or reporter knew about their secret exit the night before. Later, the audience would only see their fantastic on-screen chemistry. On the porch in the Bahamas, Sean Connery's eyes snapped open. The night sea breeze blew a few white hairs across his forehead. His wrinkled hand gripped the edge of the chair before slowly letting go. The wild thrill of Las Vegas still felt incredibly real. He slowly let out a long breath. It was getting late. His memory brought him to his final stop, an ancient Scottish castle, where an actress far younger than him was waiting. Catherine Zeta-Jones, curves winding through the laser beam. The noise of Las Vegas receded into the past. Time fast-forwarded to the late 1990s. It was 1999. He had just turned 69, and his career was entering its final act. The entrapment crew was filming at the ancient Duart Castle in Scotland. The Highland weather was freezing, the sky perpetually blanketed in gray clouds. His co-star for this project was Catherine Zeta-Jones. The age gap between them was a staggering 39 years. The press relentlessly questioned this disparity, doubting whether the two could pull off any believable on-screen chemistry. The public scrutiny weighed heavily on the production team. The script required Catherine to navigate through a laser security grid. Director John Amiel had rigged a complex web of red beams in a dark room of the castle. Catherine, clad in a skin-tight black bodysuit, began to move. She arched her back, lowered her center of gravity, and slithered through the obstacles. Every single physical movement was precise and decisive. Sean Connery stood watching from the shadows. The red light from the lasers cast a glow on his face. He stared intently at Catherine's every move. The magnetic pull from the young actress demolished any barriers of age. He tapped his foot against the stone floor. His entire focus locked onto her. The director called a wrap on the rehearsal. The crew quickly packed up the gear and filtered out into the hallway to prep the next scene. Soon, the massive room was left with just the two of them. The footsteps of the technicians faded away. Catherine stood up, panting, beads of sweat dotting her forehead and neck. Sean stepped out of the shadows and approached her. The distance between them vanished. He reached out, placing his massive hands on her waist. "You move very well," Sean said in his deep voice. Catherine didn't step back. She looked up, straight into his eyes. She reached out, placing her hand on his chest, and tightly gripped the lapel of his coat. The age gap ceased to exist. They ignored the probing eyes of the public. Sean pulled her flush against him. Catherine actively went up on her tiptoes. They threw themselves at each other right there on the empty set. The freezing Highland chill was pushed away. The ancient castle with its thick stone walls completely hid their wild passion, transcending the boundaries of two generations of actors. The days of shooting that followed proceeded normally. Catherine and Sean worked together flawlessly on camera, discussing the script with total professionalism. Not a single journalist or paparazzo discovered the secret behind those scenes. Audiences hitting the theaters just saw a perfect duo of master thieves. The media remained entirely in the dark about the events of that night. In the Bahamas, Sean Connery opened his eyes. It was late. The sea breeze carried a chill that seeped into his bones. He rubbed his hands together for warmth. 8 women, 8 secret events spanning decades. they formed a completely different, hidden corner of his life. The audience would forever remember the image of the perfect gentleman. He leaned on his cane, stood up from the armchair, and walked slowly into the house. The glass door clicked shut. The scene on the porch faded completely into the quiet darkness. 8 women and 8 secret stories forever locked within Sean Connery's mind. The world continues to praise a cinematic legend. They worship the image of the flawless spy. They have absolutely no idea about the hidden corners behind the lens. This classified file is officially closed. Which actress's truth surprised you the most? Drop your thoughts down in the comments section. Hit the like button and subscribe to the channel today, because we will be back to uncover even more shocking entertainment industry secrets in our next videos.